In the warm, fertile lands of Ehub village, lived two sisters Edeora and Oluchi. They were the daughters of Momankechi, a well-respected widow known for her wisdom and strength. After losing her husband early, Momankechi raised her daughters to be strong, respectful, and God-fearing. Edeora, the elder, was gentle as the morning breeze. She was the kind of woman who would give her last piece of yam to a hungry child, or kneel before an elder no matter her status. She helped women in childbirth, sang in the village choir, and never raised her voice in pride. Oluchi, the younger sister, was strikingly beautiful. Her skin glowed like palm oil in sunlight, and her waist moved like water. Men turned their heads when she passed. But Oluchi had a fire in her spirit, bold, stubborn, and jealous. From a young age, she wanted whatever Edeora had. Why should Edeora get everything first, she would often say. I am prettier. I deserve better. Momankechi tried to warn her. My daughter, she said once, if you do not kill the spirit of envy inside you, it will burn everything you love. But Oluchi never listened. From the moment they could walk, Edeora and Oluchi moved through the world like two ends of a river, always flowing beside each other, but never truly in the same direction. They played under the mango trees together, fetching fallen fruits with laughter echoing across the compound. They bathed together in the same calabash tub, their mother gently scrubbing their backs with sponge and warm water. They slept on the same raffia mat, their tiny feet tangled under a single wrapper. Yet even then, the village women would say, look at how Edeora shares her meat, while Oluchi hides hers beneath the leaf. As girls, Edeora always seemed content, happy to help Momankechi grind pepper, or to watch the older women plait hair under the tree. She would hum songs from the shrine, speak in soft tones, and return borrowed things cleaner than before. Oluchi, though younger, burned brighter. She was the one who raced with boys across the square, who climbed trees, who got scolded for dipping her fingers in the cooking pot. You break that girl's spirit if you shout too much, the neighbors would say. And Momankechi would sigh and reply, I only hope her spirit doesn't break someone else. At age 8, Edeora had already memorized every proverb her grandmother taught. She knew when to bow, when to speak, and when to stay silent. At the same age, Oluchi was already questioning everything. Why must I kneel when I greet? Why should Edeora always go first? Why can't I wear what I want? One afternoon, when the girls were around 10 and 8, an old woman who sold herbs in the village square watched them argue over a bead necklace. The woman smiled sadly and said, two sisters born of the same womb, one is a healer, the other, a storm. They will either build a house together, or burn it down. As the girls became young women, the gap between them widened. Boys noticed Oluchi first. They called her, the peacock of Ehub, for her beauty and pride. But when it came time to speak of marriage, they visited Momankechi and asked for Edeora. She is the kind of woman you marry, they'd say quietly. The other one, she is too wild. Oluchi heard those words. And in her heart, a seed was planted, a seed of bitterness. It didn't grow overnight. It waited, watching, until the day Obine came to Ehub, and unknowingly, became the match that would ignite everything. He was the kind of man who entered a place and made silence follow him. Not because he was loud, but because everything about him demanded attention. He was tall, with shoulders shaped by years of carrying trade goods across villages, and hands that were strong but gentle, the kind that could tame cattle or carry a baby without waking it. He came from Amokwi, a neighboring village known for its wise men and brave hunters. His late father had been a wealthy palm oil merchant, and Obina had inherited not only his fortune, but his discipline. He dressed simply, spoke slowly, and when he laughed, it rumbled from deep in his chest like thunder wrapped in honey. He had no wife, no child, only his trade, his faith in the gods, and a desire for a woman of virtue. That is what brought him to Ehub. He had come initially for business, to buy yam in bulk for transport to the city. But fate had other plans. It was early morning when he first saw her Eudora at the stream, lifting a heavy pot of water onto her head without asking for help. Her wrapper was old, but clean. Her headscarf tied neatly. She greeted him with a smile and bowed her head. "Good morning, traveler," she said, not knowing who he was. Obinna watched her walk away, the sway of her steps confident, not showy. He didn't speak. He didn't flirt. But that night, as he sat under a tree counting cowries, he remembered her smile. The next day, he returned to the stream. And the day after that. Soon, he began visiting Mama Nkechi's compound, bringing small gifts, dried fish, kola nut, and sometimes jars of palm wine. But always he asked to speak with Eudora, never lingering when she was not around. He had already made his decision. Within 2 months, his elders visited Mama Nkechi with the traditional proposal wine. They came with goat meat, cloth, a basket of garden eggs, a jug of honey, and coins wrapped in white cloth. His people bowed before Mama Nkechi and spoke the ancient words. "Our son has seen a flower in your garden, and he wishes to pluck it respectfully, with both hands." Mama Nkechi smiled, tears in her eyes. Not because the man was rich though he was, but because he was kind. She had watched him. She had listened to the villagers whisper about his discipline, his honesty, and how he treated Eudora like a queen, even before she became one. The bride price was negotiated the traditional way, not too high to make it feel like a sale, not too low to insult her worth. Obinna paid it in full and asked for nothing in return. The engagement feast was prepared. Mortars pounded yam across the village. Women sang. Men tapped kegs of palm wine. Children ran with joy, unaware of the storm brewing in the heart of one woman. Oluchi. After the wedding, Eudora moved into Obinna's large compound. Their life was simple, joyful, and full of love. She worked beside him in the fields, cooked for him, and when she became pregnant, the entire village celebrated. But back in Mama Nkechi's home, Oluchi could not hide her bitterness. She took the man that should have been mine, she told her friend, Omoka. If I wanted Obinna, I could have had him first. Just few weeks after the marriage ceremony, Oluchi showed up at Obinna and Adora's compound with a calabash of fresh vegetable soup. "Sister," she said sweetly, "I brought off onogbu with plenty stockfish. I know you're adjusting to married life. Let me help." Eudora, surprised but touched, smiled warmly. My own sister. Thank you all. Obinna will enjoy this one." Oluchi laughed and hugged her sister tightly. But behind her smile, her eyes scanned the compound, the new clay stove, the flower pot Obinna had carved for Eudora, and the goats playing by the side of the house. Everything in that home should have been hers, she thought. Everything. That first visit was short. Harmless. She didn't stay for dinner, only dropped off the food and left with her head held high, soaking in the admiration from the neighbors who greeted her as the good sister. But the next week, she came again. This time with cassava flour and dried pepper. "Let me help you cook," she offered. "You're a wife now. You must learn how to spice things up so your husband doesn't get bored." Eudora laughed, not sensing the venom in the words. "I'll try, but Obinna doesn't complain." "Men never complain, until they stop coming home," Oluchi said. They both laughed. Obinna came back from the farm that day to find both women laughing over a pot of stew. He greeted Oluchi politely. "Oh, my sister-in-law. You're welcome." Oluchi, flashing a grin. "I wanted to help your wife keep you happy. After all, keeping a man fed is the first commandment of marriage." He chuckled. But something in her tone unsettled him. In the weeks that followed, Oluchi made herself part of the household. She would arrive early in the morning with firewood. "The firewood you bought last week is too damp," she'd say. "Let me help you fetch good ones." She began sweeping the compound before Eudora woke up. She washed Obina's shirt before Edeora could. And slowly, subtly, she began planting doubts. "Sister," she whispered one evening, "Obina has many admirers. I saw one girl at the market watching him like a lizard watches ripe mango." "Ben." Edeora frowned. "Yes, oh, don't let your guard down. A man's heart is like a restless goat, if you don't tie it, it will wander." The words sank like stones into Adora's trusting heart. And Obina? At first, he was uncomfortable. He tried to avoid Oluchi's gaze. But how could he stop her from visiting? She was family. His wife's sister. Besides, she was always so helpful. Until one day, he came home from the market to find Oluchi alone in the house. Edeora had gone to help Mom and Nkechi harvest vegetables. Oluchi wore a wrapper tied carelessly, revealing more than it covered. She was pounding yam, beads dancing on her waist, sweat glistening on her skin. "You're early today," she said, not looking up. "Where is Edeora?" Obina asked. "She'll be back soon." "But why ask about her when I'm here?" Oluchi said. Obina froze. She wiped her hands, walked toward him, and placed the pestle down gently. "You're not blind, Obina," she said in a lower tone. "You see me. I see you. Don't pretend this feeling isn't there." Obina stepped back. "Oluchi, stop this. You're my wife's sister." "Yes. But I could have been your wife. You chose the wrong sister." She walked past him, letting her shoulder brush against his chest, slow, deliberate and venomous. That day, Obina said nothing to Edeora. But his peace began to rot. From that day forward, Oluchi no longer hid her intentions. She touched Obina's hand a second longer when passing food. She praised him lavishly in Adora's presence. "Sister," she'd say, "you're lucky. If my husband were like Obina, I would never stop smiling." Edeora, still innocent, simply laughed. But Obina? He became restless. He began to notice Oluchi's scent, her lips, her eyes, and hate himself for it. Temptation is not always loud. Sometimes, it enters quietly. Like smoke from a smoldering fire. And then, one night, it finally caught flame. Edeora had traveled to her mother's house for a traditional 3-day ritual before childbirth, a practice of rest and blessing for pregnant women. Oluchi came to the compound to help Obina cook. That evening, the sky was dark and the air thick. As the firewood crackled and smoke curled into the sky, Oluchi stood too close. "Obina," she whispered, "do you not see that I was meant for you?" That night, they broke the sacred bond. Edeora had returned from her mother's house only a few days before. She was 8 months pregnant, glowing with that quiet beauty that comes to women carrying life. But beneath her smile, there was a weariness, the kind a woman feels when her spirit has begun to suspect something her mind cannot yet prove. The women of Ehub believed in Ominola, the sacred customs. When a first child was about to be born, the expectant mother's compound became a place of women only. Men were asked to keep their distance, except for small tasks. This was not just for privacy, but because childbirth was considered a journey between life and death, and only the energy of women could guide a sister safely across that bridge. On the evening it began, Edeora was in the backyard, sorting peppers, when a sharp pain gripped her lower belly. She dropped the basket. "Mama Nkechi," she called out, her voice trembling. Her mother, who had been cooking yam pottage, rushed to her side. "It is time," Mama Nkechi said with certainty, her eyes scanning Adora's face. The news spread quickly. Within minutes, women arrived from every corner of the village, some with herbs, some with warm cloths, others simply to sing and pray. The elder midwife, Mama Chinyere, took command. Outside, 2 young boys began to beat the udu drum softly, a rhythm known only to signal childbirth. Neighbors knew the sound. They paused in their evening meals, whispering prayers for the mother and child. Obinna sat outside the hut, restless. He wanted to go in, but the customs forbade it. He paced like a trapped leopard, listening to the women's voices inside, the songs, the prayers, the occasional sharp cry from Edeora. Oluchi was there too. She had come to help, though her eyes betrayed something else. She moved about, handing towels and fetching water, acting the part of the caring sister. But every time Obinna's eyes flicked toward the doorway, she made sure he saw her. Hours passed. The pains grew sharper. Sweat soaked Adeora's body. Mama Chinya gave her a bitter herbal drink to strengthen her womb. The women chanted, Choku Gozi Nwaa, Choku Gozi Nnea. God bless this child, God bless this mother. At one point, Edeora gripped her mother's hand so tightly that Mama Nkechi's knuckles turned white. Edeora, breathing heavily. Mama, if I do not survive, take care of my child. Mama Nkechi sternly said. Hush. You will live. You will live, my daughter. The ancestors are watching. The baby's cries finally pierced the night just before the first cock crowed. It was a boy strong, healthy, and full of voice. The women erupted in joyful celebration. The midwife bathed him in warm herbal water and placed him in Adeora's arms. But as the women celebrated, Mama Chinya looked uneasy. She had been delivering children for 40 years, and she believed in signs. When she caught the umbilical cord, a drop of the baby's blood fell on her foot. And in her mind, it meant one thing. The path of this child will be marked by blood and pain unless the mother is at peace. She looked at Edeora and then at Oluchi, who was standing too close to Obinna. The elder midwife's eyes narrowed. Something was wrong in this home. For the first 8 days after the birth, Edeora stayed indoors, as custom demanded. This was her omogo period, a sacred time for rest, healing, and the bonding of mother and child. During this time, Mama Nkechi stayed by her side, bathing her in warm water infused with bitter leaves, feeding her pepper soup rich with fish and herbs to cleanse her body, and massaging her with shea butter to keep her strength. Obinna visited her each day, but his visits were short. He would come in, smile at the baby, ask if she needed anything, and then excuse himself with vague reasons, checking the farm, seeing to customers, buying foodstuff. At first, Edeora thought nothing of it. Men were not expected to linger during Omogo, the house was dominated by women. But one thing troubled her. Oluchi came to the compound almost every day, not to care for Edeora, but to hover near Obinna. She claimed she was there to help with errands, since Edeora couldn't move about much. When Mama Nkechi sent her to fetch hot water, she took too long to return. When Obinna said he was going to the market, she suddenly remembered she needed something from there too. Mama Chinya, the elder midwife, noticed. She leaned close to Edeora one afternoon as she massaged her feet. A woman in confinement sees little beyond her walls. But I have eyes outside. Guard your home, Edeora. Edeora frowned. Mama, what do you mean? The elder shook her head. When you are strong, you will see. On the 12th day after childbirth, a heavy rain fell across Ehub. The clouds were thick, the paths muddy, and the village felt hushed. Mama Nkechi had gone to visit a neighbor who was ill, leaving Edeora alone with her baby. The roof above the kitchen began to leak, so Edeora took a calabash to catch the drops. That was when she heard its faint voices from the next hut, Obinna's hut, where he kept some of his farm tools. Her heart skipped. Obinna was supposed to be at the market. And yet, she took a few quiet steps toward the door, her bare feet silent on the damp earth. The baby slept peacefully on her back, tied with a wrapper. She stopped just outside the hut and listened. She heard Oluchi's voice soft and laughing. You don't look at me like that in front of her. And then she heard Obinna's voice low, hesitant. You know I can't. She's your sister. She is weak now. She won't suspect. And you, You've been mine since that night, Oluchi said. Adeora's body went cold. The rain outside seemed to stop. The only sound was the pounding of her own heart. She pushed the door open. There they were, Oluchi standing too close, her hand resting on Obina's chest, his head bowed in shame. Adeora with voice trembling. Obina. Oluchi, in my own home. While I carry your child on my back. Oluchi's smile faded for the first time. Sister, it's not what you think. Do not call me sister. You drank from my calabash and now spit poison into it. You shared my mother's womb, and yet you tear my marriage apart. She turned to Obina, tears streaming down her face. And you? You swore before the gods to protect me. This is how you keep your vow. Obina opened his mouth, but no words came. Mama Chinya arrived moments later, soaked from the rain. She took one look at the scene and sighed deeply. I warned you, Adeora. A snake in the house is more dangerous than a lion in the bush. She turned to Oluchi. You have brought a curse upon yourself. You have touched what the gods gave to another. The price will be heavy. Word travels fast in an African village, faster than the harmattan wind. By the next morning, whispers had already reached the elders' meeting hut. Oluchi has been caught with her sister's husband. In Adeora's own home. The women in the market clicked their tongues. The men shook their heads. And the elders summoned the family to the Obi, the sacred meeting place under the great Iroko tree. On the day of the hearing, the entire village gathered. The elder seated at the center was Ogbuefi Namdi, a man whose beard was as white as the egret's wings and whose voice carried the weight of the ancestors. He looked first at Obina. You are a man of the land. You took an oath before our gods to protect your wife. Why have you betrayed her? Obina stared at the ground. I was weak, Ogbuefi, temptation overcame me. Then Ogbuefi turned to Oluchi. And you drank water from your sister's pot and broke it. Do you not fear the wrath of the gods? Oluchi lifted her chin, still defiant. Love chooses its own path. The heart wants what it wants. A gasp rippled through the crowd. The elders' eyes darkened. The heart may want poison, but only a fool drinks it willingly. By the customs of Ehub, such betrayal was not just a sin against family, but against the entire community. The elders decreed Oluchi would be banished from the village for bringing shame to the land. Before leaving, she must perform a cleansing ritual at the river shrine to appease the gods. If she refused, the spirits themselves would take their payment. Oluchi scoffed but agreed, thinking it was a mere formality. At dawn, the villagers gathered by the river Miriyugo, where sacrifices to the water goddess were made. Oluchi was led forward by Mama Chinye, who sprinkled white chalk on her feet. A clay pot of palm wine, goat's blood, and kola nuts was placed in her hands. The midwife spoke. The goddess sees truth. If your heart is clean, the water will become. If it is not, the river will judge you. Oluchi stepped into the shallow water, her wrapper clinging to her legs. She poured the offering into the current. At first, nothing happened. The villagers began to murmur. Then, without warning, a dark swell formed beneath her feet. The water rose unnaturally, wrapping around her ankles like invisible hands. Oluchi screamed, but the pull was strong. The more she struggled, the deeper she sank. In moments, the river swallowed her, leaving only ripples. The women wailed. The men crossed themselves. And Mama Chinya spoke softly. The gods have taken their payment. Adeora returned to her father's house for a season of healing. The elders ordered Obine to pay her family in NWA the restitution owed to a wife who has been wronged, and he was shunned by the village for months. The baby boy grew strong, but Adeora never again trusted easily. She raised him with the lesson etched into his heart. Do not covet what belongs to another. Even love can be a thief, and thieves pay dearly.